This is the first time I'm doing this, and it's going to be a big experiment. I don't even know if this is working, but I'm going to send out a tweet and put this on Discord. Just see if anyone is crazy enough to want to jump in here and watch me work on some 3D landscapes. Of course, we're going to run a little update on Discord. Let's go to Twitter. And let's see what happens. Doing a little experiment live on Discord, live on Twitch. So you probably can't see anything at this point. Let's see. Twitch, what is the stream? Sure, there's a quick way here to actually, let's see. Is there a way to share this out? Oh my God, I feel so old. Okay, I think it's Twitch, twitch.com. I made this mistake once where if I go to this URL, it'll start the stream and then the audio will go. Let's do it. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm going to hang out here by myself and work on this piece in Blender. I'll talk through it as I go, kind of explain where I am, what I'm working on, and then if anyone joins, we'll answer some questions. This is going to be interesting. Someone just said did I say that it was, oh shoot, tomorrow. Okay. All right, let's rock. Okay, so what's going on is now we should be able to see the screen. This is a current piece that I'm working on. It's called Fuji. It was taken in a very specific place in Mt Fuji area of Japan. And with all the work that I do, I'm essentially recreating real world locations, landscape photos, using real world data. So my process always starts with actually going back and collecting data on site at the location. So it's going to be tricky. I'm going to have to kind of navigate around this in terms of showing. I can probably do some stuff in Blender. So if I grab an image editor and I open up an image, I have a bunch of references. Okay, so you can't see my file browser, but we'll be able to go into this now. Um, so yeah, I have a couple references for this. I spent a full month in Japan kind of scouting out this location, deciding where I was going to go and what I was going to shoot. And I'll show you a few that come to mind in terms of what I am actually looking to create. So I found an Airbnb in Mount Fuji, right on a lake. The name of the lake, let's grab that here for a second. So the name of the lake, and I'll take a screenshot of it, is Mount Fuji, Japan. I'm sure there's a way I can actually screen share my browser. This would be something very useful for me to figure out here in a second. Set up your screen. Yeah, it literally is telling me now, set up my screen layouts. Okay, so let's do this. I'll figure out the actual browser thing here in a second. But this is the spot. Okay, so we're in Mount Fuji. I'm going to take a screenshot and I'll share it on the screen. But the lake is called Lake Yamanaka. This is the actual spot that I'm trying to recreate. So if I do a snip and I grab this image and I grab that, and then I think maybe I can even paste it right in. No, I can't. Desktop. Of course, I would have no idea where this actually goes. Copy. Come on. No. Let's go. I'm going to set the record to be the world's worst Twitch streamer. Pictures, screenshots. Okay, let's open this up. Pictures. pictures, screenshots. Come on, there we go. And I know the shortcut. So here we go. So this is the location. This is actually not that bad. I probably can do quite a bit here in terms of just being inside of Blender. Yeah, so this is the spot. So Mount Fuji is here at this location, and then this is the lake, and it's a pretty low quality here in terms of shot, but you can see this little icon here is where I actually ended up staying at Mount Fuji. So this lake is known by its shape. It's a whale shape, and if I kind of close this window, you'd be able to see this. But basically, this is the spot that I've got scouted out, and I actually took a bunch of photos up here on these two lakes, in this town. So I've got some other angles, all of which point at Mount Fuji. So if we go back to the actual scene, and we take a look, I'll just hide this. I think you'll be able to get a better idea. This is the actual scene. Hey, Stu. You get to actually come and hang out. Oh, there's actually someone here. I know Stu, so um, this is so wild to actually try to figure out how to do this. So I think this. Let me know if this is actually running. I mean, right now I only have my Blender window running, and I would love to be able to show other windows of stuff I'm working on, but I'm gonna have to figure that out. But this is an experiment. So yeah, so this is the location, and then in terms of reference shots. I can show a couple of these before I jump into this. So if I open up in Blender, I momentarily forgot how to open a photo. If I go into Blender and I go into my references, let's go to projects, let's go to Fuji, let's go to source. Okay, Fuji, JPEGs. Okay, so I'll load a couple photos into the window. Let's see if I can do two at once. There we go. There we go. It's a good one during the day. Some inversion. Okay, this should do the trick. All right, so here's Fuji. Tons of dust on my lens here. You'll be able to see this. It's pretty bad. But this is the actual general layout or composition that I'm trying to achieve. So this is shooting straight across the lake. It's a really bad photo. It's just taken as a reference. Fuji's covered in snow. Hey, Ellen, you have first time chat. I don't know if I can do some type of, there's like icons and stuff here. Man, this is crazy. Hey, Ellen. I guess I could just say, hey, Ellen, and you'd probably be able to hear me, right? Oh, this is so weird. Chat pause due to scroll. Okay, so yeah, so this is the general composition of Fuji. Just a reference photo, and I'll go back to a couple more that I have. So this one, this was one of the mornings that I was there. This is actually above my Airbnb, so this is also one of the compositions I'm considering, and it's exactly the same as before, except you can actually see there's an entire cloud cover over top of the landscape. So this is actually flying up above the clouds. So this is one of the shots that I'm looking at. And then let's show another one. No, that's my data. What would it be called? This one. We went that one already. Cropped HDR, Pine, screenshot. You think I would know the names of these? Snow, normal, no, color map, DSM. Here, I'll just grab it from here real quick. Okay, so this is it here. Okay, so here's a night photo. This is another reference, not a perfect one. This is the actual Airbnb where I was staying. So you take a look at this image. This is actually leaning over the rail of the Airbnb. There's sort of a little patio thing here. This road goes through. There's a running trail, a fence, and then there's some rocks along the actual lake here, the lake, and then this is obviously a night shot with a little bit of clouds in front. But this is close to the composition that I'm looking to do for this image. So I want to do the 3D render with the road. I want to have this little park, this little walkway going through. I want to have the tree here. I want to have a little bit wider view. Oh, hey, Ready Pair One. Thanks for joining, man. This is super cool. I guess I don't know if I'm supposed to chat and It's going to go down as one of the most all-time clumsy live streams. It's amazing. Okay, and I got one more photo to show, and then I'm going to get into actually some of the stuff that I'm working on. So let's grab one more. See if I can find a good photo of this patio from a bit wider angle. Don't have a great one here. Let me try one more. Panorama, maybe? No. Videos. No. Okay, let's go. I think this is going to be about as good as I got. I've got more of them in Lightroom, but I'll go back and get it. Let's go with this. Okay, so this is a little bit better. So same shot during the day. I have much wider, but this is, you can kind of see the patio I was on. Pretty simple layout, bit of a fencing here. There was a table on this side, and then this same composition with the actual pathway, the road. Something in here is what I'm actually looking to recreate in Blender, and then adjusting what the lake is going to look like, whether there's clouds, all that stuff. Um, you write the rules, yeah, exactly. All right, you're on the stream. Yeah, you just gotta do whatever I want. So here's the scene. I'm not gonna go. I don't want to have to go through the full blown how I got to this point. But basically, the short version is I was able to get two different data types for this. So the Japanese government has some, I would call it medium res terrain data that I was able to get access to. Had to run it through a bunch of processing, but the end result is basically this. So here, let's switch my mouse. There we go. So the end result is basically this, and you can see like it's a pretty good representation of Mount Fuji. On this side, this is the mountain. We've got a little bit of ridges here. If you look down to this side, you can actually go to this view, and you can actually see this lake from this map that I was showing a little bit earlier for you guys to join. So this is the actual lake right here. There's the actual whale. So there's the actual train, and you can see that it's done a pretty good job at cutting out the coastline. I've got my camera set up right here. So this little thing here is your camera in Blender, and then it's pointing at Fuji. And then if you actually scroll all the way over here, I think this is the town area. Yeah, this is the town area here. There's actually a tunnel that goes right through this mountain here. And then this is a whole other lake area, like really beautiful spot. I did a mountain bike ride, or not a mountain bike, a road bike ride, basically through, I think, this area and around to the other side. So you can basically circle Mount Fuji. But for the purposes of this, this is the terrain I'm using. And to give you an idea of how this is done, this is the height map. It's already gone through a bunch of processing that I've done to sort of bring out the detail, add a bit of a little bit more detail to the actual volcano and to some of the areas. But this is the height map I'm basically using. White parts of this image represent higher elevation, and black parts represent lower elevation. So you can see all the way over here in this corner, this is the lowest elevation of the scene. Whatever this little kind of river area is the lowest. And the highest part's obviously the tip of Mount Fuji. And then you can see when we bring this into an actual terrain layer, this is what we get. We basically just have a flat plane. You can look underneath, and it's actually sat here and actually popped up Mount Fuji. And if you look over here in the corner, you're going to see probably this area right here is the lowest part of the terrain. And that's how that works. I can actually control this, and I haven't run the full calculations yet to get this. I ended up getting this exactly the right elevation. I may have actually run it, but see the strength is 104. So if I hit this to 200, you can see it actually extrudes that terrain even more and exaggerates it. If I go down to phi, you get a much flatter. And I think I either calculated this directly at 104 based on the elevation, or I ballparked. And I'll have to go back and do it, but I always go back and check. Okay, so yeah, so we've got the terrain, we've got a camera. The other thing that I've done so far is I've brought in building data. So if you take a look at this, I've got building data in for this side of the lake. So if you look here, this is actually open source data. It's from OSM, which stands for open source. Can't remember the last part, but basically this is building data, and you can grab this from anywhere in the world. It's not geolocated, so I have to kind of manually put it in here. But this is actually all the buildings on this road that you saw from that image that are going through, yeah, that are basically going through this part of the town. All of the buildings are here. So what I've done is I've actually located the exact building that I was staying at for the Airbnb. And I remember this because there was a house beside where the people were staying. This was a 2-story building. On the bottom floor, there was a bar. And on the top floor was the one full apartment. And at the corner of it, it was a patio. So all I've done here, really simply, is I've actually just taken this exact dimensions of this building, and I've actually just cut out the end. So super, super, super basic, just to get me an idea of what the composition is, and place the camera in it. And sure enough, we put the camera here, you can actually see that we've got pretty close to a composition from this image. It's not perfect, and it's a little bit difficult to see the water line, uh, where the water starts and ends from this angle, but there are a couple things that I want to work on today, which is I might spend some time actually taking this building and turning it into a little bit of a higher fidelity version of this. I might take a stab at the road, which caused me a lot of heck on my last 3D render. Um, I might just play around with the composition and the texturing of Fuji. But either way, I'm going to just try to make some progress, and I'll just stream it, and I'll just talk about it as I go. And if people have questions, you can jump in. Ask me. If not, this will be archived, and we'll upload it to the Discord and everything afterwards. So I'll show you one more thing. So this is where we are in terms of just like kind of the lighting and composition. Still got a quite a ways to go, but if I switch over to first, this is called the material preview in Blender. So when this loads, you get an idea now of just like a little bit more fidelity, so you can see there's a bit of texturing going on in Fuji, although you got nothing going on here. And you can see from the buildings, even though they're just generic, you can see that there's a bit of texture and color on them. So go back. Also realize that I hid the water. So if we click this, this is really basic, and I will fix this after. But basically, I just put in a water plane at the elevation of the water, and that fills up the lake. So if we see this from that angle, you can see we've got a pretty perfect whale pattern, although this part over here is not actually water. So at some point, I'll just go in and I'll cut out um, the lake itself. I mean, I could do this right now just as an example. I would just go in and duplicate the water. I would just say water cropped. I would hide this one, and then I would go into this guy, and I would just do a subdivision. So I basically get this down to something that's like a little bit more reasonable to cut out. And then I would go into here. I would invert this, and I would just say like, all right, let's just grab the basic outline of the lake, and then let's invert that again. And let's get rid of the rest of the vertices, bring this back, bring the camera, and now we've got the water cropped to this exact location. Sometimes causes issues doing it this way. In fact, I'm just going to actually grab this, and we're going to just hit the scale. So that the scale of the water is that. But I got a backup copy. So what I'll typically do is I'll go in here, I'll add a collection. I'll just call this backups. And then from here, I'll basically drop in hide feature hints. Yes, please. Okay. I'll drop in the backups so that I always have kind of a copy of something if I make a major change. And I think I actually saw this here. You have an old terrain as a backup. I think I had an ocean simulation I was testing out. That's the buildings. And while we're at it, since this is going to drive me a little bit nuts, that's not organized, I'll go backups. I'll say camera cam 01 patio. I'll say this is water cropped is fine. I'll move these in a second. This cube is the atmosphere, so I'll explain that in a second. Atmosphere, that's the sunlight, that's the terrain, and this is the buildings. So it's very, very basic at this point. And what I'll do is I'm just going to put for now, I'll put this into buildings. I'll put this into atmosphere. I'll put this into, we'll go here and here. Actually, we'll do this. We'll go Control M. What do we want to do on a stream? Let's organize everything. Okay, so we're going to go into here. We're going to call this terrain. We'll bring the terrain in. We'll bring the water in. We'll put this into cameras, and then we'll grab the backups and we'll bring them up. Cool. So now we've got atmosphere, buildings, terrain, backups. A little bit easier to organize. Okay, so back to this. And actually, while we're here, so you get an idea. I mean, this is kind of this is a satellite map. So what I'm actually doing is when I get this data, I go and I get a satellite image from close to the same time that I was there on site. So if you take a look at this, this is actually a satellite image of the location. So you can see up here, this is just a standard, like this is just a photo of the lakes. This is the city. Like I said, there's a tunnel that goes through here. This is the other lake that I was at. This was, I believe, just a dry field. I have to go and double check my references for this, but there was something very specific. You pick it up in the photos about this area that I need to find out what the tree composition was or what was there. And then there's actually a bit of farming that goes along here, and then this gets into a specific forest region, and then eventually the snow right now is simulated based on just the weather at that time and the reference images. So the snow is sort of scattered down the mountain, and then yeah, we've got an entire city and stuff over here. Okay, so if I flip this over here, now we've got a water reflection. Now I'm going to bring this to actual rendered mode so you can kind of see where we're at on the render. Let this update. Turn off this thing. And here's where we are right now. So, you know, obviously a few things you notice from where we're at is, you know, the actual layout and composition of Fuji is okay. I need to double check the references. Actually, that's not bad from here. I'll obviously double check the height, but, you know, the terrain line is pretty good. We've got this little bump here, goes up, that's a cloud. So everything looks good on this side. I've got a bit of the light color here from that light part, and you'll see it better in other photos that I have of Fuji, like this one, for example. Yeah, so there you go. So this right here, this area with this light, you know, this is all forest, and then all of a sudden we get into this light color, and I haven't double checked what this is. And then you can see it goes back to something similar to this. Then it goes into almost like a bit of a, I thought originally in the photos it was farms, but it looks like just a sporadic forest. And then it gets into kind of like an alpine forest, and then eventually it turns into trees and rocks, and then snow. So we've got all these different layers that we've got to layer into the terrain. So I might work on that. And then the shoreline um, of, of, of the water, and then the road. And then you can see from this composition, we've got this. So let me see what I'm going to actually jump in and work on. I'm probably going to work, I think I'm going to work on this part here. So what I might do is I'm going to do some sculpting. I had a message from Xbox on here. This is nuts. So I'm going to do some sculpting. I think what I'm going to do to start is I'm pretty happy with how this is laid out for now. I'll adjust this with the camera and stuff later. But I think what I might do is I might fix this shoreline to start. There should actually be a water. Let me just double check something really quick. Object world. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, let me show this little tiny demo. I was playing around with a couple tools. Let me just see if this tool is actually here. Yeah, let's try this. So I have a water texture that I made myself, which I might just bring in as a test, but I just want to see, I was playing around with this plugin to see how it affected the water, and I think it might be worth just giving this a try here and see what we get. So let's go back to the water. Let me see if we go from what I remember, they didn't have a good, yeah, so this is an example of the water texture. And let me see what it actually does. So this is a material node. So I'll give you an idea. It's interesting. Size and shape of the water, light path, ray depth, texture coordinates. So let's just give this a try and see what kind of things. So if I change the density, it makes the water darker. 1 doesn't actually do much. Okay, 0.01. Let me see what they actually got for noise, texture, scale. Let's go 10. Okay, it's getting a little better. 5, a little better. 3. It's interesting. I'm just gonna try that with my own. Let me just bring in a water texture from another project. So I was pretty happy with the water texture that I was using for my last one. So let me see what I get working. Blender. Active. So I'm doing, which unfortunately Blender won't let you show the file browser. But what I'm actually doing, at least I was trying to do, is I was trying to bring in a water texture that I created previously. So let me see if I can find it. That's why naming things is really important. So you won't have seen that. But I think with any luck, I would have brought in, no, that's not it, a previous water texture from another project. See if I could find that. Yeah, that should be it actually. Let's see, water item, no. Water object, display, pre-mapped. Let's go back to this. Okay, that's looking a little better. Let's not rotate it. Oh, I see what's going on here. Okay. Let's go displacement 0.001. There we go. Okay. So what this is doing is there's this texture, basically this one up here, which you won't be able to really see. I do have a node preview. I'm not sure why it's not working. But this texture, DIS place right here. So this is basically a displacement texture. So what it's doing is every color on this spectrum is telling the software to basically add height to the image, to the water at any location. So I brought this in and it's displacing the terrain, and you can see if I bring the scale way up, you can see the entire water actually just turns into, you know, it basically drops below the ground line. So there it is here. It's kind of doing like a crazy bubbling thing. And then if I bring it to 0, it just turns into a flat texture. So the key with this is just figuring out what's like a right number where you get a bit of texturing on the water itself. Like that, get like a little bit of rippling, and you can do all sorts of things afterwards to adjust this, but I'm just trying to get this to a reasonable place here. Yeah, so there's a little bit of reflection, 0.05. And then you can do things like we can change the rotation of it. It goes into like something a little bit on the side. So even something like this for me is good enough for now. You know, we've got a reflection. I'll just say what it can do with the color. Yeah, thin. Let's bring this down to black. Yeah, we've got a reasonable enough reflection, 0.5, no tint, roughness, 0, roughness, 0.01. Yeah, we've got a pretty reasonable reflection there with a bit of rippling, which is just enough for me to actually set this up. And then I'm going to go do one more thing, which is the world itself. So this is what's controlling some of the lighting right now. So there's a full-blown 360 lighting in the scene. So you can see it's got a sunset. And then what's happening here is that sunrise is coming from that angle. And I haven't done it yet, but I can actually sync up the sun with the actual sun inside a Blender and with the real location. But for now, just to kind of, get this looking what I want, one of the things I can do is I can actually add this thing, which is called texture coordinate map. And what this is doing is basically letting me change the position of that 360 image. So if I say, for example, just put this at 15 degrees. No, that's scale. Right, let me try that again. Try this at 15 degrees. So you can actually see the sun moves to the right. And then I can do this here as kind of just like a demo. If I bring this out, it's actually not what I want to do. Join area. If I bring this out here, and I bring this to the actual camera, I bring this to a rendered view, even if I bring this to here, yeah, no, back. Okay, so what I'm doing here is just getting a reference for where the light is on Fuji. And then if I change this to scene lights and scene world, now I got the HDRI. So you can kind of get a feel for this in terms of where that sun is. So it's now here. So it's just coming out over the side. And really what I want and what happened, I believe that day, I'd have to check the actual sunrise. I believe the sunrise was probably about here. So if I actually rotate this, say 30 degrees, it's getting closer, 40 degrees, it's getting closer. So let's just, for dramatic effect, let's just try it straight on the side of Fuji. So from here, about a 90-degree angle from the sun to that. So what that should do is it should cast like a nice sun on the side of the mountain. So now what I can do is I can grab the sun, which is here. And there's a couple ways to do this. So you can actually sync the sun to this. Let's see if it works. It's been hit and miss for me in the past, but if I go into world and I go to world mixer, I think it does it. Maybe it's physical atmosphere. No, this is not what I wanted to do. And that's going to probably crash everything. No, get rid of that. It's another interesting plugin. No, let's go back to this. Scene light, scene world. Did I mess this up? No, I did. Okay, so that goes back in here. Okay, there we go. So if I go in here and I look at world mixer, background strength, world HDRI, add sky texture. This is not the one I wanted. Give me a second. Edit preferences. Real sun. No. Yeah, sun position. So if I go, for example, let's just try this. So I've got this information. So this is location. So this is Fuji GPS location. So we're going to go 3542. So we're going to put in the latitude, and then we're going to put in the longitude. The north offset's always the tricky part. So this is where it's saying north is. So I'll have to line, so north is going that way right now. So let's go, distance is fine for now. So the date on this was November 22nd, 2022. So 22nd of November, 2022. And then this shots were probably around 9 o'clock. Let's try that for now. UTC zone for Tokyo is what? UTC time Tokyo. +6, +9, +9 hours. So I can go ahead and put that at 9. And then what we should get, let's go sun object is our sun. Okay. We have to bring this back. Where Where's our sun? Okay, so sun's over here. Let's go. Let's bring you back over top of the middle so I can actually see it. Okay, so that's where the sun is facing right now at 9 o'clock. Okay, so then north offset. So this is going to be due north this way. So the question is, how does this north offset work? Is that the north offset? Would the sun be coming that way? No, it would be coming. So that's it coming. Okay, so the north offset's probably right. And then let's see what happens if we drop the sun down. So what's happening here is this, the sun, you kind of see it, although it's not very easy to see this. There we go. So basically that's going to be the direction of the sun. So if I actually bring that back over top of, I don't know why that moved. If I bring that back over Fuji, you can see it a little bit better this way. Okay, so there you go. So there's the direction. That's what it's saying the direction of the sun is at 9 o'clock. So if I bring this back, you get a feel for where that sun comes across the landscape all the way down to sunset. So this seems about right. So this is 8 o'clock in the morning. No, this is local time 5:40. So this is 5:43 in the morning. Sunrise was 6:26. So you can kind of watch this as the sun comes up. We get that little bit of glow on top, which is one of the photos I have has that. So this would be like a lighting option would be to go to something like this, which is like a really nice glow on Fuji. And then as you can see, as we get closer, it actually lights up and then it can lights up the actual patio. So, creative choice here for me is going to be whether I might do something that's a little bit more mid-morning, which is actually when that inversion happened and I was able to fly above the clouds, or do something that's like really dramatic around just the tip of Fuji. So I think for arguing, like just for this purposes right now, I'm going to probably set it to here. And then one of the things that you can do just to kind of dial this in for a little bit of work is you can see if I turn off the entire world. So I basically turned off the lighting from 360. It's interesting that that's something else is. Let's turn off the atmosphere for a second. Okay, so this is just with the sun. So this is the sun lighting the entire scene. Oh, I see what's going on. Okay, color temperature. So there we go. So this normal color temperature. So sun off, sun brightness, and you can actually see as the sun gets brighter, we're lighting up the scene. But it's very specific. It's coming in from one angle. It's not adding any fill lighting to the scene. So the kind of the creative idea here, which you can figure out, is where do we want to put the sun strength versus the HDRI strength, which is more of like the fill lighting. So to give you an idea, if I bring this up to, well, let's just do this off at 0, and then let's go just the HDRI, which by the way, they should actually, if they haven't, they're pretty close. There is actually an option here. Let me see if I can just do this quickly. World sync. Let's see if we can get, sometimes I do this and it actually messes it up. So is it synced right now? Sun object, rotate the angle. Is it? Sync, bind texture to sun. I don't know if that actually worked. It might be. Actually, it might be pretty, it's pretty close. Oh, wait a second. No. Oh, please. Okay, hold on. Please. This is bind texture to sun. This is why I usually don't do this. Let's try this. So this would be the sun. What did that do? Doesn't feel like it got that right at all. Okay, let's kill this idea for a second. Let's close this. And let's bring that sun back. 1, 0, sun, position, 10, 1. And let's go back to worlds. So where did we lose this? Normal. Okay, let's forget that. We got our latitude and longitude right. We've got our time right. We've got this. Okay, so this is back to normal. Let's leave this for now. Let's bring up the sun strength. Now, what this doesn't do is it doesn't simulate the atmosphere. So what we can do is we can kind of warm. This is what we were kind of doing before. We can add a bit of hue to the sun. Not a lot. Oh, it's in Kelvin. Okay, so we can add like a tiny bit of hue. Be like really, really careful with this. Yeah, there's like a lot of pink on the landscape there. I might even have to, I'll do that a different way. Yeah, we'll keep that like that. And then go back to the actual environment, and we can just sort of play with how much light to bring in. So that's going to update. So there you go. And there's a balance here between 2.3, 0.4, getting there. Just jump up to 1. It's interesting that there's such an interesting light that would be green from there. Okay. 0.5. Let's roll with this for the moment. Like this gives a decent background. And then I'm just going to see what that atmosphere was doing again. There's way too much atmosphere. So this is basically a cube, and because Blender's not really meant for this type of thing, basically outdoor landscapes. Yay! Sorry I didn't see that Ready Pair One. Thanks for coming in here for a bit. Appreciate, man. And I'll get better at figuring out how to actually see these messages in the future. Okay, so let's just fix this atmosphere up a bit first. So what the atmosphere is doing is you can get an idea. So this is at 0. You've got kind of just like a flat image, and then here's at like 0.1, 0.01, 0.001. 0.01. So it's just adding fog. It's very basic. It's not very detailed, but even a little bit here, even something like that adds a little bit. And then the I can never say this word, anisotropy is basically the way that the fog reflects the sun. So if we bring it all the way this way, you can see it kind of gets a little bit clearer. And then if you bring it this way, we get that kind of like effect where the particles of the atmosphere are reflecting the sun back into the camera. So depending on what we're looking for, we can bring it all the way over here. I like to bring it somewhere like that, so we get like a little bit of brightness on this side of the camera, and that's going to be pretty good. Okay, lots of other things we can change here, but I think for the most part, this is probably good enough for me to do what I want to do. Okay, cool. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on a little bit of this coastline, and I'm going to see if I can get something that resembles a road structure running all the way along this, along the shore edge, and then see if that turns into something that actually looks pretty good along the side of the water. So I'll bring up this reference. Unfortunately, I probably don't have the right references for this, but I think this is probably as good as any. And you can see that the building that we're in is here. The road does take a bit of a turn. I think it kind of captures it, yeah. So we kind of look at it, we'll look at it from this angle. Essentially, we've got our building, and then we've got the road going fairly straight, and then we've got the actual curvature here. And if we close this, we actually grab the water cropped, you can see that, really what's happening is that the shoreline is not super well defined. It's somewhere along here. And really it's just the height of the water that's defining the shore. So if I bring this down, you can watch it on the left. That's the shoreline changing. And that's just all based on where that actual water line is at this moment. So realistically, if you looked at this building, you'd probably notice that this building was actually underwater. So you can see what happens if the water rose a little bit in that area. So maybe realistically, something like this, if you kind of look on the left, you can start to see a little bit of definition there. The road's coming along the side, then it juts out. We've got the road here, and then it juts back down and curves. This is not bad. So I'm going to leave the water here, and then we've got this actual building, which I think is actually a gazebo. Yeah, it is. Okay, perfect. So I remember this gazebo. I have photos from this gazebo. The water's probably even a little bit back from that, although it's going to be really hard to do it from this. Yeah, like I would say probably that's probably pretty safe. Somewhere like that. Okay, cool. So we got a bit of room here. We've got some room here to do the road. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on this shoreline. So I'm going to basically adjust the shoreline now so that it comes out a little bit more with a little bit more definition here. And then I'm going to smooth it out as it goes off into the distance. This tree will cover that part up. And then I might try to lay down some flat sections for the road. Okay, so I'm going to leave this here as a view, and I might even change this to a material preview. No, I won't. I'll keep this one rendered. And then what I'll do is I'll turn on some noise reduction here so it'll look a little bit better on camera. And then I'll get rid of the T, I'll get rid of these, and then this will be our reference point, and then this is going to be our sculpt. Okay, so we're going to go into sculpt mode. Now, sometimes I'll use an actual stylus for this, but I think for this point, it should be okay. And first thing I just want to check is I'm going to check the actual, just ignore this for a second. I'm just going to check how dense this terrain is. So what we're looking at is if I go into object mode again, and we look at this terrain and we actually bring up this view. So you can see the terrain's actually not very dense because what happens is we're using this subdivision. And this gets really messy, and I struggled with this last time, but basically this subdivision is what adding resolution to the actual terrain, but that is not usable for sculpting. So there is a thing called a multi-resolution modifier, which I've used in the past, and I'm just going to see, let me just save this. What we'll do is we'll save this as, you won't be able to see it, but we're going to call this Fuji 1.0.1. And I call this pre-sculpt. So I try to do a reasonable job with version numbers, although it's not very good. So I'll show you an example. So version control. So V 1.0.1. This was 1.0.1 pre-sculpt. And then normally I would keep like a change log of what I would want to do here. So V.1.0.0 post sculpt. I actually did this. So there's V1.0.0 original. This is what I've changed today for now. Okay, so here, basically, I adjusted atmosphere, adjusted lighting, adjusted water texture, adjusted water height, adjusted sun position to match real world data. And then for this one, this is going to be pre multi resolution. Okay, so this is good enough for now. So basically, what happens at this point is we're just going to look at this terrain. So this is the quality of the terrain. It's pretty low. It actually is higher on screen, but in terms of what the mesh sees, this is all we actually see right now. So I'm going to show you how this works. Okay, so let's try this. If we try to sculpt this right now, here's what it's going to look like. So we're going to go back to this, go down to the mesh, and we're going to start we'll do a draw strength of 50, turn this off, and just see. Okay, so first of all, unbelievably slow. I wonder if it's because of this preview. Let's turn that off. Nope, it's just shitty Blender. Okay, this is the point where I usually complain about why I'm doing this in Blender and how I should do it in Unreal Engine, but Stu told me I'm not allowed to use Unreal Engine, so I'm gonna have to try this. Yeah, the sculpting is not gonna fly. Okay, let's try this. Let's get rid of everything else in the scene. So this is isolation mode, so we're just now isolating on just the terrain. So everything else that is in the scene is gone. And then we're going to sculpt. Yeah, it's not good. So let's just see if it's a terrain issue. Oh, it won't get anything. Smoothing. Yes. So there you go. There's an idea. So see, I'm smoothing the terrain out, but you can get an idea of how, like, even at this level, if I went down here, very slow, and it's pretty dramatic changes. So I'm going to try to see if I can fix that. Edit, undo, edit. There's like a live stream thing up here, and I wish I could. How do you get rid of that? Why would they put the live stream window right above? Okay, undo. Edit, undo. How about we undo history all the way down to scope mode? Okay, we're back. Okay, so I'm going to try to do is there's only 10,000 vertices in this. We're going to try to put another modifier, which is called a multi-resolution modifier. And what this one does, which is different than the subdivision one, is this will subdivide the mesh and actually let us use a specific mesh size for rendering, for sculpting, and for the viewport. So look what happens. Subdivide this. Now we've got more resolution. Let's bring the viewport down. Let's keep this. Let's do another one. So now we're getting into Blender territory where, I mean, the stream might go crazy, but this is where we're getting into Blender just not being equipped to handle this. So now we've got a bit more of mesh, and let's just see what that looks like. So for sculpt, we're at max, for render we're at max, and for viewport, we'll bring it down to what it was before because I think it looked fine. So now if we go into sculpt mode, we bring us back to here, and we have nothing. No, why did that go? That should be here. Why won't it? Oh, right. Cannot move beyond a non-deforming modifier. Huh. I wonder. Well, we've got this saved. Let's see see what happens if we kill our subdivision. Can we move this beyond? Yes. Can we subdivide this enough? Never did get this right. Okay, let's see what that did. Yeah, so we lost. I mean, we're at we're at 2.6 million vertices and we lost. Because the way that this works is that essentially this map that I showed earlier, this is the displacement map, the height map. It needs a certain amount of geometry to displace. So probably what I'm going to have to do is we're going to have to go like this. So we're going to let's leave this for now. Well, this might be actually too much. Unsubdivide. Okay, actually let's kill this. So first thing, let's bring in a subdivision modifier. Let's bring this up. Let's get this to a level that it was before. So see the difference? So now that we're adding basically geometry to the mesh for this displacement height map to handle. So the more dense this mesh is, the better this thing is going to do at actually making the terrain look reasonable. So there's always a spot where the resolution is ineffective. So you can see at this point, you're adding detail when you go to here. But if we go one more, what we're actually introducing is, we're introducing a little bit of contour. So you can argue that that's not necessarily a bad thing. But the truth is, we probably will never see this. We're going to cover this up with a texture. So it probably doesn't matter. So I would go probably to 4. And now that's at 2.6 million. So watch what happens if we keep this and now we try to add that subdivision, that same one before, add modifier. And I'm just thinking about this. There's other solutions here which I've done before, which is okay. So this is not going to let me do it. Okay. So there's two options. I'm going to try both. So first one is take a duplicate terrain. We're going to call this WC terrain original. And then I'm just going to drop it into the backups. Make sure these backups are off. Okay, there we go. Just deselect them. And then, so the two options are basically one, we can actually divide the mesh. So I've done this before. So it's basically like we can quadrant it out. So we can say like this is one area, one area, one area, and then give us a lot more detail here to work with. The problem is as soon as you start modifying it, you end up getting like a disconnect between um, each area. So there'll actually be um, holes in the terrain. By the way, I'm going to get a webcam so you can actually see me talking about this in the future. This is just a test to see how this actually works. Okay, so that's one option. The other option is I can actually apply this. So I took the backup. So for example, if I apply this subdivision, now you're going to see that this is the terrain. So this is actually what that looks like. So there's actually a pretty good amount of geometry here. So we can just try this without doing anything else. If we go to sculpt, and then we go into this mode, and this might be a good chance. So you can see compared to before, there's a much better effect on the terrain. But I'm wondering if I actually apply, oh, thanks for the promotion. Should we do it? Weakening Autumn. Should we take their offer? Hi, this is like the chat is the worst. Hi, I want to offer promotion for your channel, viewers, followers, views, and chatbots. Price is lower than any competitor. How do you know that? The quality is guaranteed to be the best. Okay. Auto on. incredibly flexible and convenient order management panel. Everything in your hands. Okay. Weakening atom. Get 100 people in this room in the next 15 minutes, and then I'll give you my email address and we'll talk. That's your challenge. See what you can do. Okay. So if you find 100 people that want to watch this shit, I congratulate you. All right. So it worked. Performance is bad. And I'm wondering if I go, so let's bring this all the way down. Man, sculpting in Blender for terrain is not good. This is notoriously known, by the way. So I'm just going to try one more thing. I'm going to see if I actually do the displacement. Does that make it any better? No. I mean, you can see what I'm doing there. Like so I'll give you draw is always a good indicator. Oh, it actually did it. Did that actually fix it? That would make a lot of sense. Yeah. Do you know what? Let's not even worry. We've got the backup. Okay, I think we're in business. So basically, this is the terrain. Let's unhide everything else so we can actually see the water. Chat paused. Okay, so we're bringing this back. Okay, so now we can see the water. We'll bring this view back here so we can see rendered. We've got our reference down in the bottom left. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways to do this. So I could get a map, a top-down map view or a satellite view, and I could actually see where the shoreline is and attempt to line it up. But for, I think, the purposes of this, at least for now, I think the right thing to do is just to try to match the shoreline just by lowering or raising the terrain below the water level to smooth this out. So I'll give you an example. So if I go into smooth, and if everything's running pretty well, actually I should be using the shortcut. So F does the size, and Shift F will do your intensity. So just to give you an idea, as I start to smooth this out, man, it's slow. See, you're actually pushing the water line out because we're smoothing the terrain and in a way raising it to bring that out. So we can use this. So if I start to work over here, and again, all I'm doing is smoothing the terrain. I'm not even really modifying it that much, but just enough to, and I can put a pin. This is an annoying part you can't see. So you can watch the left as a reference, and we can turn this on. So you can see this is where I am on the reference here. So you can kind of say, okay, we want to affect this area so we know that's the spot. We're trying to bring this out a little bit and then smooth it around. So now we can go back into sculpt mode. We can grab this and we can start to play a little bit. And I mean, it's painfully slow, but it's something. We'll do negative. She's going to bring it back in. And you can even see here that part of the problem is this terrain is still not enough detail. So let's, for fun, let's add this multi-resolution. Let's see if we can crash Blender. So what we're going to do is we're going to just show you this. So this is the terrain again, as it is right now. Let's turn off that. So this is the terrain. So the reason why you see these jagged edges is this is not like at a grand scale. This is why doing landscapes in Blender is stupid. But at a grand scale, there's 2.5 million vertices on here. So each one of these dots is a vertex, right? And a face is a square. So there's 2.5 of these on this terrain because this terrain is like 7 kilometers across. So when you get down to like this scale of these buildings, this is what it looks like. So again, there's a couple ways you could separate the terrain and say, okay, we need detail here, which would be a smart way to do it. But what I've typically found is if I say I cut out this area and add a lot of resolution, it ends up with the displacement, it ends up actually causing issues to the alignment on this side. So let's try it. I'm going to save this again, but I'm going to save this one as 0.02 post sculpt. Post. Okay. Change this one as post sculpt. And then I'm going to first just see what happens if I do another subdivide, because we're going to go up to 5 million vertices. And it's going to start freaking out. So what it's doing is it's subdividing right now the entire mesh. It's going to make those squares half the size. And we'll end up with a massive, so we're, I don't know where that math came from. We were at 2.5, we're at 10. I don't actually know why that worked that way. But did it go more than one? Why did they not even look like they changed at all? Did they not show up in here? Let's just go to sculpt mode and see if this makes it any better or not. Otherwise, I might cut the terrain out. Okay. Another interesting thing. So with this multi-res is it also like doesn't let you show the preview while you're doing it. Yeah, and this is going to be even worse. There's just too much geometry. Okay. Let's go back. Let's go back and try this again. I have another idea. All right, so we're going to go. Yeah, it can't handle. So not for this stream, but for another stream. I actually have this entire scene also made in Unreal Engine, and pros and cons of doing it in both versions, but definitely in terms of handling large geometry, night and day. Okay, so we turn on backups, and this is one thing you got to be very careful with. So we're going to delete this one. We're going to go back and grab the original, bring it back, and now we've got the original mesh. What we're going to do this time is we're going to go for subdivision at this level and the displacement. So we're going to do the backup again. Backup. And we'll call this one backup. And then we're going to go into the backup folder. Oh, interesting. Get a message that there were actually 10 people watching this, which is kind of exciting for me. Not going to lie. Sorry, one. Okay, back to this. Okay, so this time what I'm going to do is, instead of doing that full-blown thing, I'm going to go ahead and just apply all this. Of course, I just did it as the backup. I don't think it's going to work. Okay, perfect. Let's go to the original, apply it to the original. Okay, so now this is still a lot, but I'm going to try something. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to just isolate out the lake area. So, from generally from what there's a couple things you could do, right? And I'm sure there are plugins to do this. So one creative way, if we knew this was the camera angle, is we could basically cut out the terrain, um, everything that the camera sees. So if you wanted to have the maximum resolution for um, for the terrain, one thing you could do is take the camera. So if you scale up the camera, that's what the camera sees. So basically everything in that line is in our scene. Everything out here is nonsense. I mean, we could literally delete everything outside this scene and it would have no effect. Now, I need to keep it because I bring this terrain into Unreal Engine and I actually go ahead and I'm like converting these things into fully interactive terrains. You'll be able to drive or walk or explore the area. But for the purposes of Blender, I could delete that. So for example, let's just do it to get an idea. So we're at 2 million vertices, and again, this is the measurement of how well usually the system can handle what you're working on. So in Unreal Engine, they've got a system called Nanite, which can handle just any density of a mesh. In this, it's like kind of like loading, a high resolution image. The bigger the amount of pixels in the image, the longer it takes to load, the slower it is. Same principle here, except we're talking geometry. So a mesh that is like this is going to be a lot harder to load than one that's much lower density. Okay, so I'll show you an example. So I'm going to just see. I'm going to see what happens if I go into edit mode. And so option one would be this. So we go in, we say, let's delete everything outside this range. So we'll just do kind of a broad separate thing. Actually, let's do it this way. Let's undo that. Even this struggles to actually, my computer is going crazy right now trying to handle this. Okay, let me think of the best way to do this. So first of all, we turn on X-ray mode, which makes sure that we get every piece here. And we can do the lasso. And what we want to do is let's go, okay, so no selection. Let's just lasso, let's just do the whole lake. Let's do that, okay? So example A is we separate this. And now we've got two terrains. We've got this one, which is going to be WC WC terrain off cam, and we'll go, this one is WC terrain on cam. Okay, so talking through this for myself, but also to explain. So on paper, this is good because we can just get rid of this. Like, notice nothing changed. Did anything change? Something with the lighting changed. That's interesting. Bit of reflections maybe off of, huh, I wonder why that changed. Oh, I know. So basically, so here's what's cool. So if we look at this here, like on paper, nothing changes. When I get rid of that terrain, you don't see anything move because it's off camera. But watch what happens. So on this terrain, when we remove that, what's going on is that that was actually blocking the sun. So if we go here, this probably little piece right here on this side, this little part of the mountain was blocking the sun. And then you actually can see it when we get rid of it, we get more light. So realistically, that would happen in real life. So if we are talking about proper shadows and getting it accurate, this would be the way to do it. But the nice thing is that we can turn this off, we can work on the terrain, and we lost, if you look at the numbers, we're at 960,000 versus 2.6 million. So this in generally should help us quite a bit. So I think this is a good thing. The difference is, and the reason why Blender is not really great at this, although the multi-resolution idea, that modifier that we were doing down here, the general idea of this modifier is this modifier should look at the camera. I believe it's optimal display. Skip drawing rendering of the interior subdivided edges. Maybe that's not it. Pretty sure it's this modifier. Subdivision might do it as well. I'm honestly can't show. Let me just double check this. Oh, I should have done that. Let's go subdivide the mesh. Hmm. I'll have to go back and see, but oh no, there's a subdivision there. Subdivision. Adaptive. This is it. Okay. So, no, adaptive render time. That's not it. Let's close these off. So there is a setting somewhere which says, hey, this is further away from the camera than this, therefore give this less resolution than that. I would argue that what I want for this scene, if I was to have full control, is I would want maximum resolution probably around this shoreline. So I would probably divide this in this way. I would have this as being the primary scene. I would probably then do another one around the fish. That would be kind of my foreground area. That would have high resolution. I would leave all of this as low, and I'd probably take from the top of Fuji somewhere in here, and I'd keep that resolution high. Even though it's further away, all this detail at the top of the mountain is really important, and I wouldn't want to lose any of that. And it's already not that great, to be honest. I mean, I have to go in and do a lot of things to make it look better, including textures and stuff, but I wouldn't want to lose it. So we'll try this version first, which is just separating this and this. And if that does the trick, actually, you know what? Let's go. Let's try it. We're in experimentation mode. We've got a backup. So let's go to different zones. So let's do this zone as number 2. Okay. I'll actually turn this on. Let's pick this zone here. And let's separate this one. No, that's not what I want to do at all. When did that shift? When the heck did that change? Make vertex parent. No. What the heck? Whoa, 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 whoa. My keyboard's going crazy. Command P. No. I feel like I'm losing my mind right now. It's like I forgot a shortcut. Make vertex parent. Huh. Oh, was it just P? No. Oh, that's O. Oh. Forgot the shortcut. Separate selection. Oh, so that's wrong. Okay, let's try this again. Something like this. I'm an idiot. Something like this. Okay. So let's separate this. Selection. And we're going to call this one foreground. Okay. And then we're going to do is we're going to go back to this one. And we're going to do a selection circle. No, that's not what I want. We'll do the lasso. So we're going to say, let's just generally get the outline of Fuji. the same. I mean, who cares what's behind, but I'm a little bit, don't want to cut it off. Sure, let's go with this. Okay, so separate this one, and let's call this one WC terrain. Call this Fuji because it'll be simpler. And that leaves us with this. Okay, so a couple things. That just means we can now fully hide everything else. So we can hide this, and we can hide this, and we can focus on this. So now, first thing we can see is how well can we sculpt this just on its own. So now we're in sculpt mode. We'll go into this. We'll zoom the heck in. Object mode. Zoom in. Let's get our spot. Something like this again. Just like that. Zoom in. No. Okay. Let's just check this again. Mesh is pretty low. Let's see what happens when we sculpt. Okay. So good news is performance way better, right? That works a lot better, but we don't have our detail. So now this is where I ran into issues before. So let me just try this. So if I subdivide this, I want to be able to sculpt it. So let's try the multi-resolution. So we're going to multi-resolution. We're going to subdivide it. We'll go to this view. Subdivide it again. I wish it would show it. Why doesn't it want to show it? Oh, that's stupid. What is the point of that? Skip drawing rendering of interior subdivided edges. Don't ask me what the point of that is. In Blender, by the way, you can do this, and you can just right-click. You can't see my screen, but I just went to the manual. What does that do? When rendering the wireframe of this object, the wires, the new subdivided edges will be skipped. No. So yeah, it's basically just saying, hey, we don't need to show you that, but I mean, it's nice to see, right? So now we're at 800,000 vertices. Let's go one more. Now we're at 3.4. So now we're at like serious resolution for the lake. And like, by the way, while we're here, if you want to get super crazy, we should have done this before we did. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. Let's show you this for a second. By the way, we don't need any of the geometry in the lake. So if you actually look at our water again, I mean, arguably, yeah, I mean, you don't need it. Okay, so there's the water. So you can kind of see the outline of the water. So if you want to get kind of crazy, you could cut inside of this out and get rid of it. I mean, you don't need it. The water's there, but you know, let's see. It really comes down to just performance. So let's just go into sculpt mode. Let's get back to um, that spot. Thought it was there. Okay, there it is. Okay, so now, you know, a little bit better. This doesn't look that much better. Oh, because we turned this off. Okay. See the difference? We actually can create a shoreline now. So as long as this performance is not crazy, we go into here. Fuck, this multi-resolution thing. I wonder if there's any, is it, will this do it? Yes. That's the magic. That's the magic. I hadn't actually used that before. Huh. Okay. I'm really hoping that this works really well. So what I think this is saying is we'll show you the high resolution mesh, but we'll let you modify the low resolution. I think that's what this is saying. Let's see how this works. Absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. You see that? So I mean, again, you got better resolution here. Like we got much better resolution on the sculpt, but look how bad that is. Slow, 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 slow. Super slow. And honestly, I don't know this modifier that much to tell you whether. I bet you if I turn it off though, yeah, look at the performance. So much better. But then we get the jagged edges. Okay, one more try. Let's meet in the middle. Let's go multi-res. Let's subdivide it once. Get rid of the optimal display. All right, I think we're gonna have to go with this. I think we're gonna have to go with this. Okay. So, man, it's still crap. I mean, I guess if I get it to what I want, um, if I get it to what I want, at least when I subdivide it, it'll be smooth. Man, I hate sculpting so much in Blender. If you wonder why it takes me so long to do these things, welcome to my little nightmare. Okay. Why don't you just take a photo, Matt? Literally took dozens of photos of the spot that I could just. There is a vision. There's a plan. There's a reason why I'm doing this. One, because I like it. I mean, just enjoy this process. But more than that, once you create this, you'll see. Like I can show you this in Unreal Engine. It's wild. I not quite have it dialed in yet in terms of the looks, and I'm a little bit more comfortable with Blender. But I feel like probably we're not that far away from like converting all these things to Unreal Engine, and then I think life will be much easier. Okay, so what am I trying to do here? This is very frustrating. Um, by the way, just show another way to do this. So you can definitely go here and you can go into the actual mesh itself. You can turn off on this side. You can turn off this, and just to give you an idea, I mean, you can actually go in to the individual. I mean, literally, this is what you're doing with sculpting anyway, by the way. You can do this. So you can say, hey, we want this to be a little bit further out. We want this to be a little further out. And in fact, maybe this is just going to be a better fucking way to do this. Someone is, used to Blender, maybe be probably screaming at me right now. Maybe there's a better way to do this, but I don't know one. Man, fuck it. Let's apply this. Hey, out of curiosity, how does this perform now? Well, that's not bad. Huh. Okay. Weird, but okay. What I was trying to say is that I can just go into this edit mode, and you can do it this manual way. You can even turn on um, proportional editing, which what this is doing. So watch, it's basically picking all the vertexes close to where I am. So yeah, I mean, this is another way to do it, but now what we have is mesh that we can't recover. So when we do this, what we're ending up with is, we can never go back to what we had before we added all this detail. So it's not ideal way to do things. But sometimes. Anyway, so what I'm trying to do is using the reference on the left, I'm just trying to add a little bit of that curve to the train, right? Just enough that it flows a little bit nicer, and we've got, doesn't really need this big curve back. Okay, I like this. And the truth is, if I'm looking at this perspective, I mean, this is sort of going straight down here where this is curving in. I don't like to modify that too much, but it is something that I can consider. Like if I go to that spot right there, I say, okay, what's going on here? So, just to get an idea, if I fix this, and again, this is just part of the problem of the resolution of the terrain not being that great. But if we bring this into, this kind of level here, we just bring the whole terrain out, even at like, whoa, no, even like this, and then it's like I see this little thing. That's this part here. It's funny how like it doesn't look like a big deal, but the shoreline gets really exaggerated at that camera angle. And then I lost my proportional editing. That's good enough. So it's got a bit of a wave. So it didn't change it that much, but at least now we've got somewhat of a line going down here. And then the road does go back out, which is this. You can actually see it. This part here is this part here. So, I mean, it's actually very accurate. Like, you really can get an idea. And of course, there'll be buildings across here. We don't have one thing. There's the train's gone, so you won't see it. So let's just finish this first. So comparing this generally to this, we've got a road coming along. It goes out a little bit, maybe too dramatic, but it's not bad. I think this is going to work. Okay, so let's just bring everything back and just kind of see how it looks. So now we bring back all the terrain. And this is just something I'm going to double check because this is what was happening to me on a previous project, is when I do this with the terrain and then I start to make modifications, sometimes you get these like crazy edges. See this? Yeah. So you get these crazy edges along the edge of this because it doesn't know what to do. Yeah, so it does this, and then what happens is you end up getting a gap. So yeah, there you go. There's a perfect example. So now, to be fair, I might have subdivided that with a different, it's called a Catmull-Clark. It's like a certain way where, and it actually creates rounded edges. I may have done that with that subdivider, which is what's causing that. But again, are you going to notice it? I don't know. Maybe depends where it is. So if you go in here, say that's over there, but like, what about here? Can you notice that? Like at some level you would. There it is, right? When there's trees on here and buildings, no. So you have these decisions that you're always making, which is like, okay, I just did that. Do I go back and do it the right way? Take another 20 minutes, or do I just say good enough for now and move on? So I'll, for example, just for my own sanity, 1.0.2. This is a post sculpt. I'll say fixed shoreline subdivided terrain. Note. Subdivision created a seam between foreground and background. Yeah, and again, there's ways to fix this. You could join the terrain, remesh it. There's a lot of techniques, but I think for the purposes right now, this is going to be pretty good. Okay, let's try one more thing. So now that we've got the terrain, the other thing that I would like to do is flatten it. So if we go from the point of this camera and we look at this, we may not have enough room. Although again, perspective can really play a trick on you because we look at our terrain, we have enough room for a road. If you think of this as being a building, there's going to be a bit of a sidewalk, probably from here to here. And I don't know if I've got this to scale. There's actually a measure tool. I'm just out of curiosity. Let's see how close these buildings are. So is this building going to be, no. Okay, so this is way, yeah, so yeah, this is way off scale, which is fine. I'll fix that after. But yeah, so forget the measurement for a second. That's not going to help us. Okay, so just think about it in terms of perspective, right? So let's grab this. No, that's not what I wanted. Okay. When did this shortcut become that? Okay. So if we look at this, we say, all right, this is the building. It's right on the road. We probably have a bit of a front patio. The road is probably, something like this. Then there's a bit of a gap. There's the sidewalk trail, and then there's this. I would argue that probably from a scale standpoint, this might be a little too small. One thing that's really useful, which I actually don't know if I've got in Blender, that really can help with this, although it's going to be a bit of a disaster. I should have done it before, is to just bring in a human for scale, right? So you could put a human in there and say, all right, where's the human when they're standing up in here? Do they look like they're to scale? Is there enough space? It's not that far off to me because if I think about where this was, I think of like a person standing here, like approximately to this height, up to this side, walking down on the path. Like it just visually, it looks okay. So I think I'm just going to go for it and see. And honestly, this is something that I don't have a good technique for, so I think it's worth just trying it now and then. I think I'm going to call this stream close. So I'll see how far I can get. What I'd like to do, actually, there's a good chance to show the annotate key. So what I want to do is I want to basically say like, okay, here's the sidewalk. And maybe that's a bad one. Maybe that's like, here's the sidewalk. Okay. Here's the road. Here's the gap. Here's the walkway. And I don't really care how much gap is between the walkway. Oh man, why did that annotate key? Hold on. There is a way. Where is that setting? There's a way to tell that annotate key to not do that shit. I'm getting tired. Let's see. Color auto. Where is that? Annotate. 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 Placement. View. No. surface? Well, kind of. That was pretty good other than that little hiccup. Okay, that's not bad. I don't know. There's another way to do this. I just don't remember what it is, but that's actually pretty good. So, I'm drawing. Okay, so let's try it this way. So let's just say here's our gap. Let's say we've got this much for the sidewalk. And let's say then the road is going to go, let's say about here. Keep it around the same distance. This is not very good. And then let's say there's a little gap, something like this. And then there's our nice path. So just as an illustration, right? Forget this line. That's what I'm basically going for. So what I would want to do is I'd want to flatten a road all the way along here, and that's actually very easy when you get to like the width of it. Um, it's easy to place a road on the terrain that looks reasonably good from the perspective you're in. If you want to go up to it closely, I don't have a good technique for that. So I'm going to try a couple things, and if it doesn't work, I'm just going to say screw it, and probably do a bit of research tonight and come up with a better way to do it. I didn't like how I did it the last time. It looked good in the moment, but it didn't hold up when I got close to it. Okay, so let's just get rid of these. So there's a couple things without using any plugins. I'm curious what options we might have in sculpting. So select the terrain again. We'll hide all of our other, hide everything else. Keep this. Go into sculpt. Okay. So these are all the sculpting brushes, and what I'm looking for is a sculpting brush that will flatten the terrain in a really consistent manner. So like what I would love to do is set a width and draw a line and have that thing flatten the terrain. And I got a feeling there's probably a way to do it, and it's not something I know how to do. And I probably could figure it out pretty quickly. Okay, so here's flatten. Let's see. Done this before. So this is flatten mode, and there is an option over here. If we go to brush and we say we want to set, there's definitely a way to tell it, hey, flatten this. I definitely have done this before. Brush, texture, no, stroke. So I need a YouTube audience of people to tell you how to do these things. Fall off cursor. I mean, I know for a fact it's here. Okay, we're gonna do an old search. We're here. Sculpt. Okay, I know a couple ways to do this actually. Also, okay, let's do this first. I'll show one way to do it, and then I'm gonna just see if there's a better way after. So one way is back to edit mode, and we don't have a lot of geometry here, but I'll just show you one way that I've done it in the past. So if you set the width of this to say approximately what you think the road is, let's just say that, okay? Go back into a nice view, like the top-down view, okay? So let's say that our width is this. Oh, go to this, keep the same width. here's what happens. So first of all, zoom out. If you zoom out, you lose your width. So let's just say it's this. Let's just for argument's sake. So what we can do is we would select what we would think the road would be, but you can just see how imprecise this is, right? But just to give an idea. Okay, so good enough. Go over here. Went a little bit up, so we can just kind of delete these. Road goes down here. I mean, this is definitely not going to work, but it's worth at least a demonstration of what I'm talking about. So get rid of this. Okay. So one really dramatic way to do this is grab this entire, and you can even see it just doesn't feel like a road, right? It's not smooth, the whole thing. But what you can do is you can scale this up. Just basically tell it to scale there and hit 0. No, that's not what I meant. Scale z-axis 0. Boom. Okay, so what happened is that it took all of those vertexes on that I have selected and it put them completely at a 90-degree angle. Now, I think we're on proportional, so that actually might have an effect. So let's turn that off. So scales at 0. Okay, so this is probably a better explanation. You could turn on a bit of proportional to do this, but so what did it do, right? It took this. So now it created a bit of a gap to the road because it took the average of all of these faces and it said, hey, let's make this flat. And it's not bad. In fact, we probably could do this and then maybe smooth the top, maybe smooth the bottom. But there you go. That's somewhat of a flat road going through the terrain. And then I've even gone as far as saying like, okay, well, this is right along the water, so it's deadly flat. This is going to be like no elevation change the whole way. So this works. But if you had elevation change, you'd have to adjust it. But let's just say that that's not bad. And then we can, just as a best practice, I'm going to set this to road. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, no, 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 vertex group. I want to change the name of that. Why is that not letting me do it? Okay, fine. Assign. Now will you let me change it? No. Fuck, I don't know. I'm just going to switch off this for a second. Okay. This should let me change this now. No, there it is. Jeez. Road. Okay. So what I just assigned all of those, all the terrain I flattened, I assigned it to a group so I can find it later. So if I was like ever in here and I was like, okay, I got to grab all the road again, I can just deselect it and I can select the road. There it is. It's useful for texturing and a bunch of stuff in the future. Okay. So now we've got a reasonable road, and actually it's not bad because it kind of goes behind here. This is our patio. We got a bit of a gap, and now we've got a road. So let's just go with this for a little bit. And I mean, if I come up with a better way to do this, I think plugins obviously can usually solve these problems, but basically what we would want is draw a line, set a road a certain width, but this might actually do the trick. So let's just say that, this is off camera at this point. So let's just end it here and just see, okay, is this going to do the trick for what we want? So what we could do now, if we wanted to get rid of that harsh edge, we could now go into sculpt mode again, although the performance is going to be terrible. We could bring this down, bring this up, go to plus, go to smooth, not flatten, and we could, oh, geez. I must have something on here. Plus, is that it? Oh, there we go. Okay. So now, we can kind of bring it down a bit, but we got to be careful not to affect the road. See what we did? So we like smooth it out, but then we affect the road. Now we have a road that's not flat. So let's figure that out after. I'm sure there's a way to restrict it, or I could probably sculpt only on a certain vertex group. Something like that. Texture, brush, hardness, mesh boundary. Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm sure I could just, smooth out the top of this with not much impact. Keep the front, but we're good enough. Okay. So now, just as an idea, we could take this. Okay. Let's try this. Curve. I can't remember which of these is going to be the best solution. This is going to be a bit of trial and error, I think. I really should save this. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this as a curve. I'm basically going to tell this thing to start off camera at basically where the road is. And now we're trying to get it about the right height. And I think there's lots of ways to do this. And basically, to some degree, have it follow the road. Okay. Now, there is a modifier. I'm trying to remember this here. Been using Unreal Engine too much. Is there an option to just God, I know this one. It's driving me nuts. There's a simple way to have that extrude out. Give me a second here. Oh, okay. Yeah, so there's a lot of ways to do this. I'm going to probably leave it for tomorrow. So there's either, create a plane, basically create the road and then have it follow the curve all the way down. But I swear there's a way to actually add a modifier to this curve and actually have it go out to the width of the road. Is it solidify? No, that won't do it. I swear I've done it before. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that would be basically the idea. So I'll leave the curve in here, and you can kind of see what happens with the road. So even though this road is very flat, in fact, what probably actually happens here, to be honest, is that the road probably just cuts this. So if I wanted to actually fix this, I would probably say this didn't actually do that curve. So what I would do is I would just select a few of these. Something like this. Call it that. Performance, this is so bad. S, Z, 0. Okay, I don't know what's going on. S, Z, 0. Can't tell if it's just a delay from missing something. Oh, maybe it's doing it and then, oh, it was. I'm losing my mind. I don't know what is going on with this. S, Z, 0. Okay, well, officially, I think I'm going to call it. Yeah, so basically what's left here to do, just to summarize, is the goal would be to just get basic road running down here, add in the path, which again is just really all we got to do is add a flat section straight down, another flat section that's thinner down here. That's it we have to do for the terrain. Everything else is good. And then it's an array modifier of a fence that runs all the way along. It looks like this side of the walkway. This side cuts off, and then details like adding the curb and all these bushes and stuff that can come after. The parking lot, we'll see. I might change the angle so that the parking lot's covered up. Then from there, the shoreline probably doesn't even need to be done because there's really nothing that can be seen on that at this moment. Then I'll probably do that on my own, and then after that's done, then I think the fun part's going to be modeling this actual building. And I actually have a full LiDAR and photogrammetry scan of this patio. When I was in Japan, I took it. So the goal is going to be to take this and convert this patio into as true to life representation of where I was as possible. And then we've got some fun here. We've got the lights we can play with up here, the textures of the wood, add some trees in, and then after that, it's really a matter of most of this foreground is going to be covered with bushes in key spots like here. The hard part that I still got to figure out is I'm going to try to import all of the OSM data for these buildings. So this is all the building data all along the coast, which is going to be big file, but they're low density. And if I can get them to match up, then I can probably just use some really basic textures. Probably not from this photo, maybe other photos, but basically just some like monotone gray textures. You can see from this distance, I mean, that's what a building looks like. It's very simple. And then this is probably the most challenging part is getting these layers with like a good texture or, Blender can't handle trees, which is another reason why the Unreal Engine, was very appealing for this. And I, may eventually just switch over because I can put in, 100,000 trees at very low scale along here to kind of get this terrain. And then, it's going to spend a lot of time sculpting and adding, texture and whatnot to Mount Fuji. So here's where we are at this moment. I'll just bring everything up, turn off the backups, turn on the terrain. Um, Yeah, well, there we saw the same one here. Turn off this, go to full screen. So this is basically where it's at this moment. We've got this blocked off. We're going to fix all this up. We've got the building in. We've got that. And, full disclosure, I actually have this running in Unreal Engine. I won't switch over because I don't know how to do it on the stream. But I've been comparing the two and trying to decide which of the two I may end up using for this. I may switch it up again, but I think for now we'll stick to Blender and go from there. So that's it. 2 hours into this, first time I've streamed. So if you somehow stuck through all this, I don't know what you're doing, but I appreciate it. And we'll do this as much as possible. And thanks for joining.